Every veteran has a story, some filled with sacrifice, some with struggle, some with triumph. This is a place where those stories are heard. From service to survival, from battlefield to brotherhood. Welcome to Warfighters United. Real veterans, real conversations with real impact. Welcome to Warfighters United. Being the 250th anniversary of our military, and this being Women Veterans Month, I figured that I would have a strong leader. She is a post commander of 796 out of Port Huron. She served in the Army from 2006 to 2010. She was actually a door gunner on a Chinook, and so she flew a lot of missions. And Andrea Warnock, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, being Women Veterans Month, I wanted to have you in here to talk about your experience in the military and everything that you've went through. What was it that made you decide to join the U.S. Army?
Well, my mom was in the Navy, so I think that the military was always going to be a part of my life. But to see my mom join the Navy at 34 years old, and she became a parachute rigger, and so I got the opportunity to kind of see behind, the curtain, and I fell in love with service. And I've always loved history. And, so there's always been this strong, patriotic part of me. And, being that I could go to work sometimes with my mom, I got to see, other strong women, especially I was so amazed when they would have an air show and you would see one female pilot. And so that was my dream. I was like, I'm going to be a pilot someday. And then, life happens and you make decisions as you're going to high school. And I kind of blew that one up. And so when I was 21, I called up my mom and I said, hey, I got to do something different. I want to join the military, and will you go to the recruiters with me? And she said, absolutely. So we went into the little office that had all of them all together, and we started at the Navy. And she sat down and she listened to what they were saying, and she's like, nah, you can't, guarantee her a job. You what are you offering here? And she's like, yeah, let's go talk to somebody else. And then that's when the Marine recruiter met us in the hallway, and my mom said, absolutely fucking not.
I don't know why that would be.
And then they started their little banter, Navy, Marine kind of thing. And then we went into the Army recruiter, and I sat down, and I was honest. I didn't graduate from high school. I got into some legal trouble before I turned 18. My record was expunged. I did what I was supposed to do.
Like many.
Yep. And so I was like, yeah, I didn't graduate. And he was like, okay, well, we got to start with getting you a GED. And then he went through the whole thing, and he was like, well, in the Army, you can pick your job. The Navy, they told me it would be based off of what I scored well in and the needs of the Navy. And because I didn't have a diploma and I had a GED, that there was a chance that I would end up kind of just in nothing for a while until a school opened up or, something, and my mom didn't like that answer. So, but when the Army said I could pick my job, and so I was interested in that. And so the recruiters got me all set up. I went and took GED and I got that, and then I did really well, and the recruiter was like, all right, let's go take your ASVAB. And so I went down with 3 other guys, and we took it, and I scored very well, and they said you can pick any job you want. And I was like, yes. And they're like, what do you like? And I was like, I like science. And so they told me about the chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear specialist, a bunch of words to say,
Big words that, what the hell is this?
Yeah, what is that? And it's gas mask and protective gear. And I was like, all right, I'll check it out. And they said, and we'll offer you $10,000. And I said, sold.
Of course.
And
many do.
Yeah, and so that's what I picked. And then I had to wait about a month before I had my date to leave, which was August 8th, 2006. And so, yeah, it was pretty quick. It was about a 2-month span of, getting ready and going. And I just wanted to change, and I wanted to be a part of something bigger. And I am of the generation in the 11th grade. I watched on TV in school with planes crashing into the trade centers. And, that left like a mark. And I think, like I said, the military was always going to be a part of my story.
And like everybody else during 9/11, that was exactly when I joined up. Of course, I went into the Marines, but, that was a huge aspect in a lot of Americans' lives and why they joined back then. And when we talk about women veterans, when you talk about history and you think about how far women have come to now.
Yes.
In World War II, all of our women were on the lines here in Detroit working on cars, manufacturing planes. Even children were doing it, while their husbands were deployed overseas, fighting in their battles, and you fast forward to Vietnam, a lot of women were medics, nurses, fixing our guys up, but they were rarely on the front lines.
Right.
Fast forward to, 2010, 2005, 2010, that's when women started getting more of a seat in combat roles and doing stuff that normally women didn't do.
Correct.
And, you being a door gunner and a Chinook kind of helps lead the way for younger women who are thinking about the military and the aspects that they have to deal with while they're being in the military. What would you say to a girl out there who was like 18, thinking about it, joining the military and wanting to do those combat roles?
Well, first, I would say join the Air Force. But yeah, that's always the joke. But no, I would just tell them, just think about what you really want out of it. Be honest in that, knowing that there's things in the military that are going to happen, and there is still sexism, and there still is harassment, and there is all different things. And I was aware of that when I went in, but I did have that mentality of it won't happen to me. I'm strong. I'm this. I'm that. And it does happen. And so I think that not looking at it well, I shouldn't do this because this might happen, but just having that idea in the back of your mind, it does happen, and it can happen. And so I think that I would just say, do it, be the best version of you. They're going to break you down, but that's the whole point. It because you have to make that choice to build yourself back up. You have to buy in. You have to, be something bigger than yourself and be part of the team. And, it's important to think about all of that stuff before you join, because a lot of us were just I want to serve, and I didn't think about everything, and I honestly, if I would have thought about all of that stuff, I still would have joined. It wouldn't have mattered, but of course, I think I would have been a little bit more mentally prepared.
And so you joined in 2006.
I did.
And by 2008, you're finding yourself going to Kandahar, Afghanistan.
Yes.
What did that feel like before you left? Because I know there's a lot of nervousness going to a foreign land, knowing that, something could happen, or, how did you become a door gunner? Because I know there's a good story behind that.
Oh,
and
yes.
Not a lot of women back then in 2008 were door gunners in a Chinook,
No.
A 240 Golf, shooting down range. How did that all evolve?
So, when I got done with all of my training, I ended up at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, 101st Airborne, and I ended up in
Airborne leads the way.
Yeah, I ended up in aviation. I got lucky, and I ended up in a Black Hawk Battalion, 5101, and it was cool. And I was standing in formation one day, not really paying attention, but they were asking for volunteers, and I I was thinking, oh God, I don't have really anything to do. This day is going to take forever. Okay, well, it's probably to like post cleanup or whatever. And so I raised my hand, and I that's when I realized, I was like, wow, there's a lot of people volunteering. Ooh, did I volunteer for like something cool? Like, you know, and then I hear like it's to be a door gunner, and I'm like, oh, I didn't really fully understand, but I was picked, and my first sergeant picked me because he knew that I could represent. And that's what he told me when I asked him later on, like, why did you pick me? And he's like, you've always been a great soldier, and I knew that you would take it seriously and that you would represent. And also, he was also from Michigan, so there was a little bit of like...
Michiganders stick together.
Yes, you know, and there is something special about a Michigan girl. So, I mean, I like to think that. But we're a little tougher in some ways, you know. We have to weather the storm, and we're not afraid to get dirty, and we're not afraid to go hunting, and we're not afraid of a lot of things. And and that's also part of my mom. Growing up, she always encouraged me to do the things that maybe weren't the stereotypical girl things. So if I wanted to play football, play football. If you want to ride on a dirt bike, go do it, you know. So anyways, back to the story. I got picked, and I'm like, oh, cool, I'm going to go to a Blackhawk. And first sergeant goes down the line, points to, you know, so-and-so, Alpha Company, Bravo, Charlie, gets to me and says, you're going to 6th Battalion. And I was like, what? I was like, you're going to Chinooks. And I was like, it's like my first year in the Army. I didn't even fully understand what a Chinook was. And so I was like, what? And then I realized, oh, shit, like, that's the fucking giant one, you know, like
with
the bus,
double prop.
Yeah, like the bus,
the one
the
everybody
sky.
Gets sick on.
Yeah, the bigger target. And I was like, oh, shit. So anyways, I got sent to Bravo Company 6101, and I went, started the training. And we trained with like the baby crew chiefs that were coming up from maintenance. And we were all kind of like learning together, and went through all the training, and just who I am. I'm always going to try my best, and I want to be the best. So that's what I did. Sometimes I did put a target on my back, and I was
because your competitiveness.
Yeah, we talked about that. I'm competitive, and I do have that mentality that it doesn't matter if I'm a girl or a woman or whatever. I can still do it, and I'm probably gonna do it better. But you know,
and you were talking about it. When you're in Kandahar, a lot of it was supply missions, but then it evolved into something a little bit more.
It did.
How did that work?
So, you know, you did have those times where there was only technically a couple of us door gunners, and we had our crews that we were assigned to. And there would be times where there would be crew rest that would kick in, and, you know, so there would be times where they would have to take me on, a mission or whatever it was that wasn't necessarily designated just supply. And we would have to go into some of the places that, you know, we didn't land all the way. It was load in, you know, push off, get out of here, you know, you have 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it was dangerous. And to look back now, I still can't believe I did that. Like, how did I do that? And there's no explanation for it other than, like, I just did it. And I was proud of myself. I loved it. I bought in. I drank the Kool-Aid, and then I went back for more and re-enlisted. Like, I was in it for the long haul. And like, I think about it, August 8th this year would have been my 20th year. But obviously I'm not in anymore. So, but yeah, it was hard. And when I went through the training, there was only one other female that was training to be a door gunner. And then we had one female crew chief, but her background was mechanic, and so the helicopter was her job. So, you know, and then when we deployed, that other girl, she was pregnant, so she couldn't go. And then it was me. And I don't know if there were any other women door gunners in Afghanistan in 2008. And, I can't imagine there were very many.
Well, yeah. No, I mean, and just being one of the first ones to start leading the way for others to take that path if they so choose to.
Yep.
There's been a huge push in getting. I remember I went to my reunion a couple years back, and the woman that was signing us in, I said, "Are you with 3rd LER?" And she said, "Well, yeah, I'm a gunner." I said, "Oh, you're a gunner?" I was amazed because back when I was in, there was no females in a combat unit, especially a gunner on a 25 millimeter Bushmaster chain gun in an LAV. And so, women have come a long way from 60 years ago to where they are now in combat roles, doing stuff that men do because, there are women out there that can do it better than men. And when we're basing our military on merit, which I love,
yes,
they deserve those spots just as much as anybody else.
Yes, and I am a big, believer in the best, and I don't care if it's a man or a woman. It's who is best for the job, and if you want people that are dedicated and want it, and that's not necessarily just assigned to men. And I've always been that person that, I've always had to prove myself. I told you, I had every single day, it didn't matter what I did the day before. When I woke up, I had it in my head, I had to prove myself. And
you said even every day, it was like you were starting at zero and
yep.
proving to yourself that day and then waking up the next day. And
yep, having to do it all over again.
That had to be pretty stressful.
It was, but I challenge accepted. So I just did it. And, I look back now and I have people in my life that are like, how are you so strong? Like, how do you do that? And I don't have an answer. It's just who I am.
And, going back to Kandahar, I know in the military, with women in the military, there's a lot of things that people don't like to hear about or talk about or even speak about.
Right.
There's that stigma of, not only the way some women are treated,
right,
but you also have military sexual assault.
Yes.
And so there was a night in Kandahar where something tragically happened.
Yes, unfortunately, I became a statistic. As far as I don't like to call myself a victim, I am a survivor. And what happened was I was about a month from redeploying home, and middle of the night, I woke up and I was being attacked. And I remember the very first thing I remember was trying to reach for my knife that I kept and my weapon right next to me, and they were not there. And I remember fighting and kicking and screaming. And the odd part is all of a sudden I heard a voice in my room, and it was my roommate, and she was like, "What's going on?" But the part that didn't make sense to me was that she was not supposed to be there. And like I had told you, that day, I had 3 other roommates. One, she went off, she got sent to a fob to gather stuff. And then my other roommate, she didn't stay in the room. And then the roommate that was like, "What's going on?" She worked nights, so she wasn't supposed to be there. And so when she started yelling, like, "What's going on? What's going on?" My attacker stopped and ran out of the room. And my first reaction was to go after them because I couldn't see who it was. I usually had my laptop open for light. That was closed. It was pitch black. All I could think of was I need to figure out who this is and I need to do something. And so I went after him, and I opened up my door into the hallway. The lights were off, and I caught just enough of a glimpse of this man running out, opening the door and running out to see the Army reflective PT jacket. And I went out after, and when I got to that door and I started to go, there was the barrier right outside, like I described to you, and I looked around, and it was just gone. And so I went back into my room, and my fiance at the time lived just like right across the street. And so I started buzzing him on like AOL back in the day, Messenger. And he woke up and I told him, hey, somebody was in my room. This is what happened. And he's like, I'll be there. I'm on my way. And he got there and he escorted myself and my roommate to my first sergeant, because by the time I was getting close to redeploying home, I got sent back to my original unit, which was a HHC unit. And so I was working in the orderly room and helping prepare for, going back. And so my direct line supervisor was my first sergeant. And we went to the room and I knocked on the door and I said, First Sergeant, this is what happened. And he's like, oh, well, let's take care of it in the morning. Just make sure you lock your door.
That infuriates me that any first sergeant would ever do that, especially after such an incident.
And my fiance, Ed, he was like, oh, First Sergeant. But like, he was very like, these are the regs. This is what we do, and that was, he was very focused on the rules. Like, that's how you do things. It's procedure. That's why we have them. And, and the first sergeant was like, no, Sergeant, like, this is what we're going to do,
I bet you wanted to punch that sergeant, or first sergeant, in the face. I know if I was him, I would want to.
Well, and I, at that point, I had so much adrenaline and like fight or flight. Like I couldn't sit still. Like, and that need to like do something, like, what the fuck do I do? And so, it might not have been the right thing to do, but I went around that night to every female trailer and room and knocked on their doors and told them to lock their doors. Because, like, I don't know if it was just that part of me that felt like nobody was going to do anything, so I had to do something. Like, I had to warn people that, like, there was somebody out there. And I didn't sleep at all that night. And about 6 or 7 in the morning, something like that, I had the knock on the door, and it was to be escorted to my company commander. And when I walked in, the first thing that was said to me was, here's this counseling statement. We want you to understand that if we find out that you're lying, that, we're going to do everything in our power to make sure, basically.
That should never be the first thing that company commander says. Yeah.
So that was like a, and then he explained, like, restricted, unrestricted, do you want to move forward? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, of course. Like, of course I do. Like, I want to protect other people. I don't want this to happen to anybody else. And also, that's what they tell you to do through all of the training, like, report, talk to somebody, like, that kind of stuff causes issues in units, and, morality,
everything that
morale, whatever. But, so I thought I was doing what I was told to do, like, that's.
Well, you were doing the right thing.
Yeah. And, so then they took me over to, the medic, and, did their examination. And then in front of me, my commander and first sergeant asked the doc, like, hey, did this happen? And he was like, yeah, there's something happened. And they were like, okay, well, we're just not really sure. And so we're gonna take her to mental health and have her evaluated. So in Kandahar, Canadians were in charge. So, I had to go to mental health that were ran by the Canadians. So now I had to go tell my story to another country's mental health professionals.
That's crazy.
And go through that. And then I remember, like, the guy that I had to talk to going out and, like, kind of being very upset with my first sergeant.
As he should be.
Like, why is she here? Why is she not at the MPs? Like, what, this is not procedure. Like, what are you doing? And then, so then they're like, well, okay, well, I guess we'll take you to the MPs. So I went to the MP, met my roommate and my fiance there. We got put into 3 different rooms. I did my written statement, and I waited and I waited and I waited, and it was like an hour. And finally somebody came in and basically was like, yeah, sorry this happened to you, but there's really nothing we can do. You can't positively identify the person. And I was just like, in my head, I'm like going, well, I mean, like, I know he touched my stuff. Like, everybody has to have fingerprints. You know, like, I had like all of these, and like, they're still there. They're still there. Like, this is how it happened, and those will never go away. And like, I just didn't understand. And I asked, I said, well, like, he touched my stuff. Like, what? And he was like, well, there's just really nothing we can do. And that was it. And then I went back to my unit. And it was, the assault in itself was devastating.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But the thing that really broke me was what happened after.
Because they didn't support you, believe you, or do what they should have done.
Right. And then it was, okay, well, we're going to send you back on torch. You leave in like a week. But just know that like somebody else got bumped for that spot for you.
Nothing like making you try to feel worse.
Yeah.
For having that happen to you.
Correct. And that, and they just kept saying like, you're a soldier first. You're a soldier first. Focus on.
I wonder how many other soldiers, Marines, Navy, women out there that have went through this same aspect when they went to report something that happened, that their command's more worried about themselves than they are about their soldiers or the people underneath them.
Right. And that was one of those things that was hard for me to like kind of understand, because at first I didn't fully understand, like, why aren't they doing anything? Like, why don't they care? I'm like, they know me personally. They know me as a soldier. Like I don't understand. And it wasn't until Ed, my fiance, and then became my husband, explained like, this is about them. This happened under their command, under their thing. So like it affects their career. And it's like, that's so messed up that's still a thing.
Yeah.
Even after all of this time. And there's been push to take it out of the chain of command, to take that away. And it's still something that's like, it's still there. There's still that problem. And, there's been, push to change that. And
as there should be.
And the worst part is like when I went back to my unit, everybody turned their back on me. And so these people that I was willing to die for, I did anything for, they come to me, they're having problems or whatever. I would give them support. I would do whatever I could. And I was left behind. That thing that they say, you never leave
a man or a woman behind.
A fallen comrade, never leave them behind. And that's how I felt. I felt left behind.
I'm so sorry that happened. And it didn't stop there. When you got back to the United States.
Nope.
When you got back to Kentucky, what happened then?
So, I got back, and it was, I got another counseling statement. It felt like they were just counseling me constantly, saying that I needed to, really focus, and, I needed to help prepare to bring the rest of the unit back. And I, once again, soldier first. And so I did what I thought was being a good soldier, and that was I shut it all off. I went into robot mode, and I tried to push through. I tried to carry on with my life. I got married, moved into a house, did all of the stuff. And then I got moved from HHC to an echo company. And, I don't know if it's like this for every unit, but, that was where they sent the people that they didn't want to deal with. And at least that's how it seemed.
How it felt.
Yeah. And so I went there, and I did what I do every time. I tried to find a way to make it worth it. And I tried I helped clean up their paperwork, and I fixed up their CBRN room, and I, worked in the orderly room, and I went back into that like good soldier mode. But at the same time, I was denying all of the feelings and the emotions of what had happened to me. And then I started to notice I was gaining weight, and my hair was falling out, and I was just having a lot of hormonal issues, and I didn't understand. And I talked to my mom, and she's like, you might go to the doc, have your thyroid checked. And I was like, okay, like weird. But so I did. And I got diagnosed with hypothyroidism. And I was like, what, why? And so I did some research, and then the docs told me, they were like, well, typically, sometimes what happens is like it'll get triggered during like after you have a baby, or genetic, or, or if you are in a sustained like fight or flight stress response. It triggers, all of this release of everything, and it floods it. Yeah. And so that's what they said. Okay, well, that's probably what it is. And so I went back to my unit, and I said, hey, I have this. And they were like, oh, well, you're gaining weight, so we're going to put you in like the physical fitness whatever they called it, and like try to make me work out 2 times a day and put me on a diet and like all of this stuff. And I was like, dude, you can't do that. Like, I have a medical condition, and so I had to fight and use regulation and pull, docs in and do all of this stuff to like just be treated like I deserved to be treated. And the worst part about all of it was when I got moved, the company commander was a woman. And so for a split second, I thought, oh, maybe,
Maybe you finally got somebody on your side.
Right. And that's when I realized that she had to prove herself just as much as I did. And sometimes in the military, that's something that we didn't touch on, is that women are pitted against each other.
I can see that.
And in order to survive, there's like this part that you kind of almost have to shut off, or you have to prove to men that like, oh, you're not emotional, and you're not this, and so like you almost have to like,
all the stereotypes that people put to women while they're in the military.
Right. So there is that little bit of that. I think she was trying to prove herself, and and so long story short, the year progressed, and it was coming up on about a year after what happened to me, and it was about 8 months. And like the story I was telling you, that I was playing frisbee football or something ridiculous during PT, and once again, I'm competitive. And I was getting a little frustrated, and I was being a little dramatic. And one of the other guys in the unit was kind of like mocking me and making fun of me. And I was just like, yeah, that's kind of valid, like, oh, yeah, he's okay, that's kind of funny, cool, So, and I realized that I was like, yeah, what the fuck, like I'm getting really upset over a game, like, and so I like tried to remove myself for a minute, and my NCO was like, what are you doing? I didn't say you could stop, get back out here. And when I did that, I went back out there. The guy that was, mocking me, making fun of me, he started doing it again. And I was like, dude, stop. Like, just stop. And he was like, oh, what are you going to do about it? You're just a woman. And that's when I was like, oh, okay. And I got real close to his face. And when he said that, I felt that rage, and I clenched my fists. And I had that moment where I was just about to like, you want to know what a woman can do? You want to get your ass beat right now in front of everybody? Because that's where I was. And I just had this like little voice in my head that said, don't give them what they want.
Yeah.
And so instead of punching him, I did spit in his face. That got me in trouble. There is a little bit of joy of me saying that now, that I did spit in his face, because he fucking deserved it. But
yeah, as he should.
He deserved more. Yeah. But I wasn't going to throw away everything. I don't know
if I could have held back.
No, yeah. I wasn't going to throw away everything, because
you worked too hard to get there.
I worked too hard to get there, exactly. And I was lucky enough to not get an Article 15, and I was lucky enough to not have the first sergeant commander there at the time. They were over in Afghanistan, like like scoping out where we were going to get deployed again. And so I had a lieutenant who was a woman as well, just counsel us and, you know, say, stay away from each other, apologize, you know, move on.
Everything.
And so it was considered handled. And but the thing that I didn't admit during all of that was that the dreams were intensifying. The urge to snap, the sleepless nights, the smells that reminded me of things, and I didn't understand all of it. And even though like I would go to counseling, or you know, people would talk about PTSD, it was one of those things where I was just like, not me, not me, not me.
Well, and especially back then, you'd never admit that you're having those problems while you're still in the military, because it wasn't like it is now where it's more accepted. Back then, it was not accepted as much, and it could really put a target on your back.
And I already had one.
And you already had one, so.
Yeah, I already had one. And it didn't matter how good of a soldier I was. It didn't matter how well I made the unit look. It didn't matter. I was considered a problem. And so I woke up one morning and I told my husband, I said, I think I need help. I have a plan, and I want to commit suicide. And I did. I had a plan. And I'm just so glad I had that moment of clarity to reach out to him and say, hey, I'm struggling. And that was very hard to do. But he took me to sick call, and I got admitted to a facility in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. And I was there for like 3 weeks. Got put on medication, went through the group therapy and all this shit, there. You know, and and they were very honest. You know, they remove you from the stress, and you're in this, you know, bubble. But as soon as you leave that bubble, it's all gonna be there.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to like throw in all of this information on how you're supposed to handle it
for when you get out.
You get out, and it's going to go, you know. And so I got out and went back to my unit, and I got counseled again. And it was like, hey, we're getting ready. Are you ready to go to NTC? You know, we leave for California in a week. And I was like, no, I'm not.
Of course.
You know, they just put me on like a ton of medication because, you know, that's the solution to everything. Let's just, you know, max dose you on everything to start.
Welcome to the VA life, right?
I mean, seriously. But, so she was like, I had to go once again, get a doc and say, hey, and they had to come in and say, yeah, no, you don't. This is ridiculous. Don't take her. We got her in counseling. She's on these medications. We need to keep an eye on her. And so, I got that counseling statement that said, you know, okay, well, we're doing you a favor, you know, so you need to get your shit together in the next 3 weeks while we're gone, because we're going to be deploying soon, and you know,
it's exactly what you wanted to hear after all that.
Correct. And they said, you know, if you're not there, you know, we'll start chapter paperwork. And I was like, all right, cool, you know. And the fucked up part is they took my husband on that training exercise. And so there I was, by myself.
Left alone again.
And came back and called me into the office. And I said, ma'am, start your chapter paperwork. Like, it was just like a fuck you. Like, 3 weeks isn't going to change it.
Right. These are lifelong things that will affect you forever.
Yep.
And they just expect you to suck it up and eat it and
push through. And it's like, had I had some different support, and had I been believed, and had there been some grace, like just a little bit of acknowledgement, I think it would have been easier to push through. I would have had support. I would have felt supported. I would have, you know, not felt so alone. And, you know, because you can work through it. You can get through it. But yeah, I started chapter paperwork, and I was out by March. My husband got deployed in February, and like I said, alone again. And then that was pretty much the point where I shut down and I shut myself off to the world. And I went into my bubble. And it wasn't until I watched a documentary called The Invisible War. And it was actually nominated for an Oscar that year. And it talked about military sexual assault.
Yeah, I mean, it happens more often than people like to admit.
Yep.
In 2024, there was over 4,000. And then, they have about 35,000 military sexual trauma cases a year in just your active duty military. And
those are the ones that are reported. Those are the ones that somebody said something. And
because there's many that people don't say anything. They just keep it in like it never happened because either they're embarrassed or they're afraid of what happened to you might happen to them.
Right.
Or they've seen it happen to somebody else.
Right, exactly.
And those numbers are probably way higher.
Oh, they absolutely are. And if you do ever get the chance, watch The Invisible War. It's eye-opening.
And so what would you say to other women out there that have went through this kind of trauma, while they're in, maybe I know there's probably still many out there that have been holding it in forever and probably struggling just the way you were struggling.
So interesting that you say that. Because after I watched that movie, I said, Mom, I watched this movie and it changed. Like, I finally feel like I'm not alone. Like, there's other people that this happened to. And she's like, okay. And so she watched it and she called me and she's like, I have something I have to tell you. While she was in a school, she was drugged and she was assaulted. And when she reported, she was a couple weeks from being done and getting sent to Brunswick, Maine for her duty station. And they said, if you move forward with this, you're not going to get to see your daughter for, because you're going to have to stay here. And they used
that against her.
They used that against her. And then they also, the whole idea that, she was 34 years old when she went in. And they're like, you're older, you should know better. But once again, she trusted the people she was with. There is this false sense of security, and you build that in a unit, and
the camaraderie,
yeah,
and everything that the morality, just everything that goes into it.
Yep.
And for stuff like that to happen it's just pitiful and wrong.
Yep. So for her and I to connect on that, and because I didn't understand when I told her what happened to me, why she was so upset about it, and I was like, okay, Mom, what's going on, and she just she wasn't fully ready to talk to me about it. And but yeah, after that we bonded, and that was something that we were able to kind of work through together. And for me, for what I would say to somebody else that's going through it, I'm in a place where I'm comfortable to talk about it, and I've never been quiet about it. From the day that it had, from day one, from knocking on all those doors. But I also have to realize and respect that not everybody can do that. Because I've had people that are like, why do you talk about it? What, and I'm like, well, why don't you? Because I know you've been through it. And they're like, I didn't understand. But I see now that there are some of us that do speak about it for those ones that can't.
Yeah, and there needs to be people speaking about it for the ones that can't.
Yes.
To make sure they don't feel alone.
Yes.
Or decide to take the easy route out.
Yeah.
And everything that comes along with that. Depression, anxiety, fight or flight, PTSD.
All of the above.
All of the above.
So, yeah, I would just say that they're not alone. And that's my big thing now, is that I don't want anybody to ever feel, or if they are feeling that, to know that they are not in that alone. It may feel that way. You may have isolated yourself. You may have shut yourself off to the world. But I guarantee you somebody else understands. And it takes that one little extra push of bravery or courage to go, I need help. And let me tell you, I am so glad I asked for help, because I would not be here today.
Well, I'm so proud of you for not only being able to tell your story, but asking for help, because who knows what would have happened if you didn't.
Right.
Right. And now it's been so long,
Yeah.
you know, now you're taking other leadership roles.
Yes.
How does that feel?
It's a crash course. It's a learning curve. Yeah, no, I think for me, being comfortable with my voice and advocating for others, there is that part of me that, you know, I have a big heart. And for a long time, I always felt like I had to hide that. And I think being a good leader, you have to care. There has to be a part of you that cares. So there's a balance, but you have to care. And it can't be about you. It's about the collective. And what is the mission? What is the purpose? And so how I ended up in the VFW was, so in 2022, I parked in a veteran spot at a Lowe's. And I had an older gentleman come up to me and grumble at me. You can't park there. You know,
you're a woman. You're not a veteran.
Woman, yeah, your spouse or, whatever bullshit.
Yeah.
And I just said, excuse me, sir, but, I was in the Army and, he still kind of grumbled. And I just was like, well, yeah, I was 101st Airborne, door gunner on Chinook, thank you for your service, sir. Carry on. And I just walked in, and I was like, and it just started to kind of irk me because this was my hometown. This is where I was from. Like, this is where my mom grew up. This is where, I went to high school. This is like, how does my community not know? Like, new mission,
Yeah, right.
So I'm like,
set a fire underneath your feet.
Right. So how do I educate my community? How do I raise awareness? How do I tell people that, like, hey, women serve too? And so I came up with an idea to do like a fun run, like a 5K, 1 mile walk, kind of thing. And I came up with this idea, and it was called Salute Her. And so I had some connections. And I figured out, I started to set it up, and I got like, when I was in high school, I was a track runner. And so I knew people in the running community to help me. And then I was like, okay, well, I have this idea, but what do I do with it? Like, where do I go? What do I do? And so my job now is I'm a hairstylist. And I was at work one day, and one of the girls came over to me, and she's like, hey, can you take this client? She just wants like a wash and a style. She's got something going on tonight, but I can't get her in. And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. And so this lady, she sits down, and I start chatting with her, and I was like, so, what's going on? I hear you got an event tonight. And she goes, oh yeah, I'm actually joining the auxiliary at the VFW. My husband passed away, but they're still letting me join. And I was like, oh, wow, that's amazing. I said, well, I'm a veteran. And she's like, well, are you a member of the VFW? And I was like, no, because I didn't have the best experience when I got out. And then through the years, like when I did try to join an organization, it was like, they kept trying to be like, oh, you can go in the auxiliary. And I was like, nah.
No.
No, I want to be like a member. I want to be a post member. Like, I qualify. Like, I want to do this. And so I just kind of was like, whatever. And so I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll think about it. And she's like, well, there's a meeting tonight. And I was like, okay. So I went home and I talked to my now husband about it. And he's like, well, you should go, And so I looked up online, like what I needed to join. Mm-hmm. And so I brought my DA 214 and I came down there and there's some guys sitting up at the bar, canteen, and I walk in, and they're like, hello, and I'm like, hi, and they're like, what's up? And I was like, I want to join. And they were like, okay. And they're like, do you have your DD-14? And I was like, yep.
Here it is.
Here it is. And so I filled out my paperwork. I gave them my money, and they went down and had started their meeting. And then somebody came up and got me and brought me in, and I did the whole like this
swearing in.
And the weird thing is when I did it, I had that weird like like, oh my God.
I'm re-enlisting again.
I know, like, oh no. But and then I told them like my idea of like why I joined, and it was crazy that I did, because when I sat through that meeting, I learned that my post that I had just joined, it got shut down by department a year prior, because people weren't following the rules, and they came in and they were going to shut it down permanently. But Post has been open 100 years, and
A lot of history.
a lot of history. So some of the OGs and past district commanders, state commanders, stuff like that from the area were like, hey, let pump the brakes. Maybe we can find somebody to like bring this all back around. And they decided, and that was a gentleman named Rick, and he came in and he was doing the best he could to kind of bring it all back around. And then I came in, and they were having this meeting, and come to find out there were back taxes that were owed. It was in rough shape and hanging on by a thread. And so I said, well, I have this idea.
Well, let's raise some money.
Yeah.
Let's do some things.
So I hit the ground running, and I went and got some sponsors, and I didn't, it wasn't a crazy amount of money, but it was like $7,000. And that covered almost a year of back taxes.
Good.
And then it was, well, we have this House committee vacancy. You want to be a part of the House committee? And so then I learned what that was. And then we had the junior vice was having some things. And so he was stepping down, and the commander came to me and said, if I nominate you, are you interested? Like, do you want to learn more? And I was like, sure. So then I stepped into that position. And then I became senior vice the following year. And then I stuck around there for, I think, 1 or 2 years. And then 2025, on my 40th birthday, I was installed as the first female commander of my post.
And how did that make you feel?
Scared. I think it was scary, but also like, when I joined and I started to like, I got down into the office and I got to go through some of like the old like historical stuff and the paperwork. I was able to find, my grandpa that served in the Navy in World War II, his little card that he filled out to join when he returned.
Really?
And it had information on there, like which ship he was on. He had his signature. And the thing that was cool was that he passed away in 1972. I wasn't born until 85, so I never got to meet him.
Right.
And this was information. Some of that information was stuff like my mom didn't even have. So, I got to give that information to her, and I got to see that, like, okay, not only, am I doing this, but like this was the post that my grandfather was a part of.
And now you're the commander there at Post 796 out of Port Huron.
Yes.
Like, wow, that gives me the chills. Just,
Yep.
A lot of military is generational.
Yep.
And when you find those tidbits of information about your family from way back when, it really means a lot.
Yes, it does. It does. So, like, not only was I already invested, but like,
Maybe doubly invested.
Yes. So I do care a lot, and I make mistakes. And I do my best to say, oh, yeah, I messed that one up. My bad.
Hey, trust me, I've made my mistakes as well. It happens.
It happens. And I'm still learning. And, and I'm still young as far as the majority of the people in my post. And there's only a couple of us women in my post. And
hopefully that, there could be a lot more, right?
To change.
Yeah.
But maybe not change, but improve, because I've been told change is a bad word. But I just really want other women and maybe other veterans that maybe feel like the VFW or other organizations, like they're not accepted and that there isn't a place for them. And that's not true.
No.
I'm a big believer in be the change that you want to see. You know, you can't. Nothing is going to change. Nothing is going to improve unless you try to do something. And you're gonna come up against bullshit, and you're gonna, you know, deal with things. And there are times when you do have to make that decision, like, do I need to walk away because this is affecting my mental health, or is this something I can push through? You know, and do I have momentum? Do I have support? Do I, you know, all of those things? But the VFW has really given me a new path, and I feel very lucky to have that. Because I always said I would never come back to Port Huron. I would never, you know, all of these things, the I nevers.
Yeah.
And here I am. And
now you become a strong leader.
Yeah.
You're an advocate for women.
I try.
You know, you're
still learning.
But you're leading the way.
Yes.
And you're showing them that it can happen. Like I said, you're the first woman post commander out of 796.
Yep.
You know, that's huge.
Yep.
Because a lot of posts have never had a woman commander.
Yep. And for that one too, especially like when I became commander, it had been 105 years. It was open, 104, something like that. And so, you know, that's a long time.
No, I mean, that's
a long time. And then
it's a century.
It is. And then last year, I had my district commander be like, he came to my post and sat through my meeting, and we chatted and got to know me. And then when he had his adjutant have to step back, he asked me. And so I got a taste of the district level. And then I was asked, would you be interested in junior vice? And I was like, yeah. And then I was like, no. I got to be careful. I got a plate full here because I'm also a member of the St. Clair County Allied Veterans Honor Guard. I'm also, you know, I was also volunteering at the American Legion in Marysville, helping in the kitchen for bingo nights. Mm-hmm. I was also, I'm the vice president of the St. Clair County Veterans Council, which is we have a meeting like once a month with all of the veteran organizations, and it's meant to like bring everybody together and like plan events and do these things. And what I've realized through this journey of getting into the VFW and all of these organizations is that I don't know the history. I don't know the drama. I don't know
that's happened before you took over.
And I'm realizing that these older generations, they want the new people to come in and take over.
But they might not be accepting the change.
Yes, and they don't want to let go of the grudges that they're carrying that are essentially ruining the organizations. They're tearing them apart. They're running them into the ground. And it's like there's that little part where it's like we have to remind each other that, you know, we're doing this for each other. And sometimes you got to let some shit go.
Of course. And that's what, you know, people out there, they're even thinking about joining the VFW. It's changing. You know, us younger generations are taking over.
Yep.
We know it's not $2 beers and pull tabs, even though those cheap beers are good. But, we're more community based now.
Yes.
I mean, you're even doing haircuts for the people one night every few weeks or a month down at the club.
I do. I set up and I have a couple of guys that I have come in and I cut their hair for them, and and they donate money to me. And usually what I do is I just donate that money back, or I put it into like when I do a commander's dinner. I also volunteer bartend. That saves us money.
Yeah.
But like what people don't realize is like when I do that, I'm not working. I'm not making money.
No,
and
you're just and supporting your community.
I am, and that people are tipping me, but what they don't realize is that I take that money and I use it to buy the food and the supplies I need to when I do a dinner, so that it's all profit. You know, that
it puts right back into the club to make it stronger.
Back into the club.
Be able to do more community aspects, and
right.
And I think once our generation from Iraq and Afghanistan realize that. The tides are turning. Yep. The people are changing.
Yes.
And it's not the same way as 10, 15 years ago, know, and the attitudes of how we're trying to do more with families.
Yes. Yes.
is growing, and it's going to keep growing. And as people like you and myself and others that are our age take over, leading the way to, get more members in there, I think that they're going to be quite surprised that there's a lot more that goes into it than what they know of now.
Right, exactly. Like we have dart leagues, we have pool leagues, we have cornhole. I feel like I've spent like the last couple years just trying to mend some things so that we can work together. And like I said, I'm not perfect. I've had my problems. I've had my people, disagree with me and leave. And, and that was one of those things I had to come to terms with. Like that's going to happen.
It happens with any leadership position.
And I understand that. But there is that also part where, for example, like the Vietnam generation, they have their things and they
were treated bad by Korea veterans, and Korea veterans were treated bad by World War II.
Yeah,
and so it goes on in succession.
Yeah, the shit rolls downhill kind of thing.
Yeah, and
and there's things that I don't always completely understand from their generation, and and I did piss off some guys in my post. Unfortunately, happens. But I'm in the middle of trying to fix that right now, and but there is that part where it's like I'm trying to understand, and it's a mutual respect between and you got to move forward, and sometimes you got to eat a little crow.
Yeah,
so
I've been there. I've done that too. Moving up in the ranks as well. So I just want to say that you're never a statistic. You're a survivor, and you're strong. And even with the past, you moving forward the way you are makes me proud just to be friends with you and to be a fellow VFW member with you.
Thank you.
And hearing your voice and the things that you went through, yes, it pisses me off that stuff like that happens, but stuff like that happens not only in the military, it happens everywhere.
It does. It does.
And without strong people like you, using your voice to make it more powerful, to let other people know they're not alone, whether it be, mental health or anything else, it's all this advocation that we try to do to build our communities better, build our military communities better.
Right.
And make sure that change is happening, even though that's a strong word to use.
Yeah.
But there are some changes that need to happen. And
yes,
without people like you, that wouldn't happen. So I want to thank you for coming on Warfighters United. And anybody that is out there listening and are having issues, if you're a veteran, go to the VFW, American Legions, any kind of veteran service organizations, and please join us. Become a part of the community, become a part of the fight, and let's make it even stronger.
Yes.
So, Andrea, thank you so much for coming on Warfighters.
Well, thank you for having me.